Okay, I'm just gonna wait to see that everything's live on the YouTube. Let's hope everything is live. Oh, there I am. Hi. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to Parents Night with Creative Assembly. We're so happy to have you all here tonight. My name is Lauren Kay, and I'll be hosting this evening affair brought to you by Into Games, who are helping the industry become a more accessible and inclusive place. They run lots of different events and opportunities, so make sure to visit the website www.intogames.org for any events and opportunities in the future, and also check out the resources as well. There's a career searching function. There's a database full of the latest game tools in order to help you build games and idea generate. It has the whole shebang. So definitely check out www.intogames.org for all that great resources. But let's talk about the event at hand tonight. This event has been created especially to inform parents and guardians how their children and or teens' interests can be transferred into a rewarding career in games. We'll be explaining what sort of roles are in the game sector, introducing everybody to a huge video game database tailored to families, and asking some amazing people from an incredible game studio, Creative Assembly, about building a career in the games industry. We'll also be conducting a great amount of games industry myth busting, so be sure you stick around for the whole thing. Later on, we'll also have a section where you can ask all of our amazing questions, all of our amazing speakers, any questions that you have looming about getting into the games industry and children and games and all that type of stuff. So first, we are going to have a word from our speakers from Creative Assembly, Joanna and Alex from Creative Assembly. And Creative Assembly is a massive UK-based AAA studio. So first up is Joanna. Welcome.
Hello.
Oh, we're so pleased to have you here and talking about Creative Assembly.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for having us. I'm really, really excited about tonight, and I hope everybody watching gets a lot of information out of what we talk about. So
Amazing. So
I'm
yeah,
just going to
please
dive
take it
straight
away.
in then. So hi. So just to get us started then, I thought I'd just give a quick overview of actually who Creative Assembly is, for those of you who might not have heard of us before. We were founded in 1987, so we have a development history of almost 35 years. And Creative Assembly is one of the largest and longest running game studios in the UK. We were actually purchased by Sega in 2005, and we're now home to 800 world-class professionals, both in the UK, and we also have a studio in Sofia, Bulgaria. In the UK, we're based in Horsham across 3 sites, plus a motion capture unit, and we represent 46 nationalities. For those of you who might know our games, we're best known for the long-running Total War series that has sold over 20 million copies. We announced Total War Warhammer 3 earlier this year, and in 2020 we released Total War Saga Troy, which had 7.7 million downloads in the first 24 hours. Along with that, with the critically acclaimed Alien Isolation in 2014, we are now in full development of our brand new first-person shooter IP. So super, super exciting times for us in the studio. We've also garnered a lot of different awards through our time as a studio, from BAFTAs to Ivor Novello, Player's Choice and Game of the Year. We've always really consistently impressed both our peers, fans and the press. And we feel that that's to do with an uncompromising dedication to quality, which is central to our studio and keeps us in the top of the charts and cutting edge technology. Also, just to mention at this stage, we also have a legacy project, which is our education program. That's also been awarded Best in the Industry for the last 2 years in a row. And this year we also won the corporate social responsibility for the studio's outreach work. Our legacy work began 7 years ago to reach out and help within the local community. However, over a couple of years, it soon expanded into something way more. Education has become our primary focus. This includes supporting computing curriculum and also addressing inequalities in society through access to technology and education. Just to give a couple of examples, in 2001, this year, we provided over £30,000 in technology and launched a new scholarship programme with Teesside University to help students in need. And so as part of that, we have over 100 developers delivering lectures, masterclasses, panel advice, writing briefs for students, offering feedback, portfolio advice, and collaborating in game jams and career mentoring. So that kind of sums up Creative Assembly. So I'm going to hand over to Alex, who's our Technical Director of Live Operations, and he's going to introduce himself, give an overview of the game cycle and roles involved in making this happen. So over to you, Alex.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all okay and hope you can hear me. So yeah, I'm Alex. I've been in Creative Assembly for nearly 2 years now, so I've only a recent kind of hire in by comparison. So very brief about me. I was born in Germany. I came here in 2001. Started graphic design initially and worked my way up from a designer up to development of games, really. So to give a bit of background on this one, so I started as designer, freelance designer, print designer, web designer, got into architecture that way, or data architecture, which was really useful for me to kind of learn different kind of ways of handling data on scale. I built websites in the past, then came to Jagex, a game studio there, worked on a number of titles you can see on the screen there, most notably also RuneScape, which is still going and still doing fantastically well. After that, I went back into technology. I worked with larger brands that you can see on the left-hand side, some of them might recognize, and then came now into Creative Assembly, which is a fantastic studio, as Joanne mentioned. And I work here now in the production team of our brand new IP, working very closely with producers, artists, designers, sound designers, tools programmers, network coders, QA testers, video and VFX artists, mocap studios. It's a fantastic role, really. But let's talk about kind of the life cycle of game development, and many of you know this already in a very good kind of way. You have a concept stage that you will always have, no matter how big or small your studio or your team is, even if you're one person only. You then go into production cycle and support that with either QA or other people to help you with this where necessary. You'd come to a finaling stage to make sure everything is ready to go on your desired platform, be that PC, be that mobile, be that console, or all of the above. Then to release, obviously, which would be quite nice, obviously, and launching the game in a large scale, hopefully for you. And finally, also supporting a sustain and grow mentality, which means supporting the game after release, or growing the game after release, or making future plans happen later down the line. In a bit more detail then, because that's quite a very small graph, obviously, and kind of how things go. I thought I'd go a bit more detail about kind of how that looks like in a studio such as Creative Assembly, for example. So we have an initial kind of planning phase, which starts with concepting, design, creating a prototype behind this as well, to kind of really kind of get people thinking about, is this game useful? Does it make sense? Is it fun? We then start an element of pre-production once we have the foundation and structure of the game somewhat working, and working towards what we call normally an alpha cycle, which means the game is now somewhat playable. It doesn't have to be fully polished, but it has to work in the way your core game loop or your game, how it's supposed to behave, is now something that can be tested and worked with. And as you do that, and as you kind of hone in towards the kind of closer details of your game, you are now considered to be in full production. And that normally has then a initial development cycle, which includes testing, going back to pre-production, going back to production, making sure everything works the way it's supposed to. And then once you're happy, or once your team is happy and you've reviewed everything and you're good to go, we would normally start a beta stage. Now, that's all about kind of refinement, not only refinement of the game you have been currently working on, obviously, but then also getting validation. Validation from testers, validation from external audiences, from mock reviewers, anything like that, to really make sure that the game works the way you want it to be, and that your target audience really respond well to that kind of game you want to make. And then finally, you work on the game, you make a gold master, and you launch it. Really, really good and really good fun to do that. But sometimes quite stressful, but overall a fantastic thing to be part of. And obviously, excuse me, that requires a large range of skills and expertise across a range of levels, of disciplines and expertise, which leads us to kind of the types of jobs we currently or Creative Assembly have in general. There are a lot of roles across CA, and all these factor into making really, really great games and wonderful experiences for years to last. And the roles that a game studio has, not only Creative Assembly, but many other studios in the same kind of way, can be summarized into these kind of 14 different areas you see in front of screens. And jobs are open usually across the year and throughout the year to make this happen. To explain kind of what a discipline might look like, especially if you're interested in kind of doing game development, let's pick art for argument's sake. So art falls into a number of different kind of types of art. Character art, creating these fantastic characters in varying number kind of tools behind that as well. There's UI art and design, ensuring you can make sure the game works and looks great, creates great, fantastic layouts, HUDs, maps, anything like that as well. And another art example would be visual effects, for example, where it really makes sure that the game sings, the game works really, really well, and is just visually astounding. And that requires, again, similar software as the other ones before as well, but also means you have different skills available to you to really make things from concept to UI to VFX happen. That's a really, really fast information really on this one. So I'm going to hand over now to Joanna with more information on that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Alex. Hi, I'm Joanna. I didn't introduce myself while I was talking about CA, so I'm just going to do that very, very quickly to get us started now. So I'm actually the Corporate Social Responsibility Coordinator at Creative Assembly. So I sit within the recruitment team at CA, but I work on our legacy project. I organise all of the school's outreach work that we do, and also work with other industry bodies and partners as part of our education provision, whilst looking after our charity of the year, which we also have, which is voted by our studio. I actually work with my colleague as well, who works with students aged 16 plus and collaborating with all of the colleges and universities. So there's just a picture of me with a codability, introducing to the children in the photo foundational skills in coding. So what I have for you today is 7 myths to chat through. Hopefully it will share some really interesting insights into the game industry as a whole. So that's what I'm going to get started on now. My first myth is getting a job in the games industry, you have the same chance as winning the X Factor. So I actually heard this at my first external event when I joined CA 6 years ago. However, according to Games Jobs Live, as of November 2021, there are 2,284 games companies in the UK, 17% of which are hiring 2,557 vacancies. At CA alone, we currently have 40 open roles. So lots and lots available. However, it is a highly educated industry with 81% of the workforce educated to degree level or above, but this is split between STEM, arts, humanities, social science, and game specific. So we would say that there are plenty of opportunities for those who have taken the time to research what skills they would need for a role that they are interested in. Myth number 2 is there are more males that play than females who play games. So in actual fact, there are 47 of European, including the UK, video game players are female. Women represent 53% of all mobile and tablet video game players. So it's actually very evenly split. Interestingly, girls who play video games are 3 times more likely to pursue a STEM career than girls who don't. And looking within the industry, percentage of females is increasing over time. So in 2020, 28% of those working in games were female, which is actually an increase of 10% since 2016. So it's actually similar to film and music sectors, and it's actually higher than other software industries. My next myth, games are only for children and young adults. So the average age of a video game player is 31.3, and 43% of all 36 to 44-year-olds actually play video games. This is because when we think of video games, we immediately jump to consoles, but actually the industry make games on phones, tablets, and the PC as well. Myth 4, I have to be a gamer to work in the games industry. So many of our employees do not actually play games as a hobby, but they love their specialism within the industry. So whether that be art or animation or programming. I actually know some developers who haven't even played the games that they have worked on. Others, however, are of course avid gamers, and we have many social groups set up around playing games, both digital and more traditional, i.e. board games. My 5th myth is working in games is not a stable career. So again, the UK Games Industry Census of 2020 recorded that 31% of those in games have worked here for more than 10 years, going up to 54% having worked in the sector for more than 5 years. 78% of employees across the industry are on full-time permanent contracts. And actually, just to give Creative Assembly as an example, we're one of the oldest UK developers. So having been around for 35 years next year, we have some employees who have been here since the mid-90s. Myth 6, there is no career progression in the industry. So most studios, especially the larger ones, will have a career progression pathway set. This tends to be junior, trainee to mid-level, senior, lead, and then director. At CA, what we have is, as shown in the chart, is it splits into 2 tiers as it goes up. And this is basically dependent on whether they're with teams or managing certain aspects of a project. And the other one is to acknowledge the skill level. So you could be a principal lead, for example. In addition, at larger studios like CA, we've got extensive training departments. We run our own conference for our employees and provide weekly training opportunities alongside giving access to thousands of free online courses. And finally, myth 7, in the industry, you won't earn enough. So it's a bit more tricky because salaries do vary slightly between disciplines, but the average starting salary in the industry is between £18,000 to £25,000, mid-level 30 to 45,000, and senior leads 45,000 to 60,000, and obviously that could go up for as you get more senior as well. As from the previous slide, you can actually jump up fairly quickly to mid-level over a couple of years, and larger games companies again offer generous benefits and annual bonuses on top of a basic pay scale. So there you have it. I really hope you enjoyed the facts and information, and hope that gives a good overview of sort of like a few different things in the industry. We also have this wonderful and very much high-level introductory view of skills and software across disciplines. We absolutely haven't covered all areas, and those we have included are light touch, but it's set out in a PDF that hopefully can be shared with you in our comments today. and you can use it as an entry point to find out more about the industry. This is only the top half, so that's just worth noting that it's definitely worth a read, just to give that really good overview and summary. So finally from me, for now until the questions later, you can go to any of these places for more information: our website, our YouTube channel, Twitter, and our ArtStation. So thank you for listening to us, and we look forward to your questions in a while, and I will hand back to Laura now.
Thank you so much, Joanna and Alex.
You're
Both
welcome.
you two are so amazing, and we've learned, I think, so much. I mean, like Chad, haven't we? We've learned so much from those presentations. So thank you so much. And Creative Assembly seems like such a lovely studio to work for as well.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to the questions when they come through in a little while as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, please remember, if you do have any questions, get them ready, but don't send them in just yet, so that they don't get lost. But we will have later in the chat, just get a notepad up, write them down, copy and paste them, for when the question segment opens up, so that you can get your question answered. You can ensure it will get answered. But next up, we have Andy Robertson joining us. Andy is the author of Taming Gaming and founder of the Family Video Game Database. So now we're going to bring him on.
Hello.
Hey, hi, Andy.
How you doing? It's been great so far. I've learned a lot as well. That was so fascinating. Just hearing the process. Drawing the person back and hearing behind it was lovely.
Yeah, and in such a simple, effective way as well. I think that graph, I just want to imprint that in my memory.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So but I guess I'm sort of often talking to parents about this, and a lot of my work comes from trying to help parents move into games, so that if it's a child's hobby or a child's something they like doing, that it's not just the child on their own. And so you've got the database up here, and I'll get to that in a bit. But I think before we look at that sort of in detail, the thing to sort of talk about is if your child's going to get into games, really the best thing to do is to play a lot of games. A little bit like how if the advice for authors, if you're going to be a writer, you need to do a lot of reading, and it's similar is true for games. But in the home setting, a lot of the work I do focuses on trying to help families play together, because when a child and a parent plays, it's a much different experience than a child on their own. The child often enjoys it, and the parent enjoys it, and there's this kind of joint understanding. And that's what kind of led me to write my book, Taming Gaming, which goes through some of the barriers that parents sometimes have around video games, which I think in a conversation like this is kind of important to highlight, and not just to sort of talk about the positives, but to talk about, okay, well, what are the kind of hurdles? And the things that parents do worry about are the violence in games, the headlines they see about game addiction, what about games and gambling? What about playing with people they don't know? And those are kind of the four kind of flashpoints. And so what the book does is to go into that area, go back to the science and kind of say, okay, what's going on? What do we know? And what I discovered was the best thing you can do if you've got a child who loves games is to play games yourself. And that would often be heard by a parent as, oh, I should play games with my child, which, as we've been saying so far, is already an important thing. But as well as that, as we were seeing with those stats earlier, find games that you as a parent might want to play. And I would often be saying that in the school setting with a bunch of parents, and maybe a mum or a dad would stop me and say, oh, I like what you're saying. I want to engage with my kids gaming, but can I just say, I'm never going to play games because there are too many buttons and I don't like shooting things. And the other parents would nod. And it's kind of understandable because games are kind of this new media. And so I would often talk to those parents afterwards, and I had these games that I knew were really good at getting them started and getting them into this world of gaming. And that's what led to kind of the format of the book. If I hold it up, you can kind of see it's in two halves. And this second half is what led to the database, which we can talk about, which is just lots of suggestions of games that I would, in those settings, I would suggest to adults. And in the book, they laid out like a recipe of what the game is, what ingredients you need, and like a method for playing it, to try and really lower that barrier for parents to discover games. And the games in the back of the book there are kind of the less well-known ones. So I would talk about Minecraft and FIFA and other games like that, but I'm also really keen to talk about the kind of the wide range of games. And often parents would come back and sort of say, oh, it was really good. I enjoyed the game you suggested. But what was better or more interesting was I had this completely different conversation with my child about games. Suddenly they're not an outsider. You know, and they can then have a different conversation and ask different questions. And so it suddenly becomes this kind of family thing. So that's kind of what led to the database. Is it? Do you think should I pull that up and sort of talk through how that works as kind of a resource?
Yeah, absolutely. But I do find that really, really, really fascinating, the whole conversation of like parents actually connecting and like almost kind of feeding the interest and like getting on the same level of interest as the child, as an effective way of making sure that your child has a healthy outlook on games and that you have a healthy relationship around gaming.
Yeah. And I think a lot of parents can feel a bit like outsiders and like, oh, it's my child's thing. They know about it. I don't get it, but they like playing it. As long as they behave, I don't mind. And they miss this kind of opportunity, both for them and their child, to play this really important role in setting aspirations and, you know, giving them different sets of games to play. And, you know, doing that kind of parenting, the work of a parental guardian you do in other areas of life. And so the hope of my work is to give parents that confidence to do that. And that's really what the database is. It is essentially those kind of those games that we were looking at in the back of the book, just taken and created on the database. One of the main things we have are these curated lists. So kind of trying to help parents find find games in different ways, a little bit like Netflix. So, you know, they have those kind of quirky lists. So here we'll have lists by age rating, but also more unusual categories like games where the grandparents are heroes, or games about getting older. If we scan down here, there's some games about being a good neighbor. And actually, when the database was launched, it was during the early months of the pandemic, and it became quite popular because of the list down the bottom here about mental health. And so we had some lists about how games can be quite positive and calming for a child to play. And that seemed to be a really good conversation starter for parents. Like, maybe if my child was playing a game rather than doing their homework, maybe it wasn't just that they were misbehaving. Maybe this was part of how they were coping with quite a chaotic world. And suddenly games become this different thing, this kind of this media. And so the lists here are just, they introduce a topic, and then underneath they just have the games that we've handpicked. And you'll probably recognize some of these if you're into games, that have a really calming or a tranquil effect on a child, or any player really. And, you know, adults as well as children could benefit from it. So that's the kind of the list discovery. But we will also have parents who will come to the database to check out games, and to sort of, you know, find out what they want to, what their kids are playing. And they might look up, pick an obvious example, a game like Fortnite, and what they get is a very kind of parent-focused description of the game. So there's no jargon, but also does talk about how long does it take, how much does it cost, are there additional costs that you might not be aware of, what's the content rating, and then what's as well as the content, like what's in the game and what age is appropriate for that, or how old should a child likely to need to be before they're playing it. So that's kind of, you know, discovery of information. The bit I really like though is down the bottom here. So if you've got a younger child and maybe you read the report and you think, okay, I don't think you're quite ready for Fortnite yet, it's an online game and it is rated 12 and older, rather than just being the person who's saying no, down the bottom here we have lots of alternatives that are kind of similar to that competitive Fortnite feel, maybe a bit of shooting, but ordered by age rating. So you can find a game that's suitable for your child by that age rating.
I love that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's about trying
really
to give parents that the information they need so they can kind of build that confidence. Then just finally, if you don't know what you're playing, there's a very comprehensive search if you don't know what to play, where you can sort of dial in, okay, I want Peggy 7 and we've got a Switch. Maybe you decide I don't want in-game purchases, but I like playing with the whole family, so I'll pick 4 players. And then you can do your search and you get a whole bunch of games coming back. And we had a bit of funding to add accessibility features, which I won't go into in detail now because it's quite involved. But as you can see, there's a really nuanced search. So if you have a child with a particular need, or requirement, you can then come in if maybe they need subtitles or larger text, or maybe they need games where you can remap the buttons, or maybe this is a good example where you play games that are low pressure and don't put you on the clock. So then if you add that to your search, you then get this very detailed games for 4 or more players, PEGI 7 and under, without in-game purchases on the Switch with low pressure settings. And again, you've got that list of games. So the idea is it's both a discovery, but also to sort of give parents confidence that they've got the information they need. And my experience is that actually it doesn't take that long for a parent to go from, oh, I'm a bit worried about this, to like, oh, there's an opportunity here. And actually it's a favorite family moment to get together and play these games. And, the kids love it too. So it's been such an exciting sort of piece of work to be involved with. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think it's so great as well because, so many times you see it when you go into a game store and a parent is just looking for a game to recommend, like a game from the worker to recommend to them about, like, for their kid, certain age, yada, yada, yada. And like, as much as I love retail workers and stuff, that it's just impossible to have that database of knowledge unless you just are one of those people who has all the information in your head, which I do know people like that who just remember everything.
Yeah.
But like, unless you have that, it's so hard to be able to recommend a game that is going to solidly, effectively, like, hit all of the notes that you're looking for as a parent finding a game for your kid.
Yeah.
So having this is just absolutely incredible, and I think the amount of games that are on this database as well is just astounding, and ranging from like really big AAA titles to more indie titles that may also be, like, in some ways more affordable. Like, some parents maybe just don't want to spend the 80 pounds on a game that is like, they don't know if their child is actually going to like. So, oh, well, this is an alternative that is like a less of a commitment price, but still benefits my child in the same way and is the same sort of similar sort of level of entertainment as, a AAA title. So I think it's absolutely brilliant.
And all they need is that information and a bit of guidance. And on the site, you can click the heart to kind of save your favorite games. And if you do that and make a user account, it will then actually go through and it will pick out, oh, these are your favorite games. This is your age rating maximum. Here's your favorite developers. And then it will pick out, oh, these are the new games that are similar to the ones that you've liked. Because every game in the database, as you saw, has those similar games that are kind of handpicked. And so we're able to kind of pick out those suggestions. And actually, I use this myself. And, the team's adding games, and I'll come to this page and I'll be like, oh, what's this? And I'll spend 5 minutes then, and actually this week I've been discovering games that we're playing as a family. So so it's been I think really helpful, and I hadn't expected it. Like it was supposed to be a small little website that promoted the book, and it's got out of hand with like it's 1,500 games or so on it now. And
it's incredible.
It continues to grow, and we've got some really great partners that we've been working with. So we've been adding the Australian game ratings, and we work with ESRB for the US ratings and PEGI obviously for UK and Europe. So it's great to it's great to have it here, because every time I show it to a family, they're often, I didn't realize that was gonna, that was available. So it's great to have it.
No, it's absolutely incredible. I recommend it to like everybody I know under the sun, because I always get asked a lot of the times, as I am a gamer and a mom, like, what games, what is this about games? What is it that I should be doing with my kids with games? Do I get them a tablet? Do I get them a Switch? Like, what do I do? And just having a place to just say, go here, spend like, a nighttime little routine, like just going through and researching and enjoy yourself. And then one of the other great things about it as well, which you've told me about before as well, is the fact that like the videos at the top, you generally for certain games, like say, Call of Duty or that type of thing, the videos are time stamped, aren't they, to sort of show the actual gameplay. So, a lot of times when you go on YouTube, you'll see like a trailer, and trailers don't always show what the game is actually like. Like, let's be real. Like, it doesn't always show the violence. Like you'll think, oh, this looks like a safe game for my kid. And then all of a sudden they're like 10 minutes in and some guy's head gets blown off and you're just like, okay, maybe that was a little bit much.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, traders are pretty good at having the age rating at the beginning, but the thing
Yeah.
is the nuance. Like, so you might think
Yeah.
it's 16 or 18, and what we do, I won't play this now, because obviously we're on kind
Yeah.
of public YouTube. But when you
Yeah.
play, it's been pre-watched by a parent, and so within a number of seconds, it will start at the point of the game where you see meaningful footage. So in a game like Call of Duty, within a few seconds, you'll be like, okay, that's what an explosion looks like, that's what gunfire looks like, and that's what blood looks like. And it's not to kind of scare anybody off or to make a value judgment. It's just to say it's a really quick way to make an informed choice. So, and you know, with the other information there, and obviously with the age ratings and the kind of the detail around that, suddenly as a parent, you can just, you know, you can make an informed choice. And I talk to many parents who have younger children who decide, okay, they are quite mature and they're going to play with me, or for whatever reason, they make their own decision about these games. And I'm happy for them to do that, provided they're making it in an informed way, because then they aren't going to get kind of surprised or kind of blindsided by what's happening. And also their children are safe. And often actually by looking at this, it's not just because they found a game that's younger. It's like they find another game like that's very different. So like they maybe look at Call of Duty and they discover Superhot, or they discover Splatoon. And so it's not just about, you know, these sort of simpler games. It's actually, oh, let's have a really wide kind of diet of games rather than just you know, just the kind of the big hitters, which are good as well, you know. So
yeah, no, completely. And just as sort of closing as well, about your brilliant book as well, where would be the best place for people to buy your book and get it in their hands?
well, on the database, which is taminggaming.com, there's a page on the book, and the first chapter of the book is there, so you can have a read for free and, you know, see what you think. But the book's available in Amazon or essentially any good bookstores. There's a Kindle version that's a bit cheaper. Amazon does seem to like the price fluctuates, so you can usually get a bit of a discount. I think at the moment it's discounted. So yeah, but I think it's a really nice big sort of coffee table book, and like I say, the sort of the first half is kind of all a lot of research that's gone into that. Sort of in kind of is the kind of more straightforward laid out. There's still some nice pictures in there. You can get to see my kids. Friends and family kind of roped in. But then I think the stuff at the back's really helpful to sit down with a child, and you can flick through, and often parents talk about, oh, my you know, we've got the book for us as parents, but the kids really like sitting down and finding games together, and it's become like a bit of a family activity, and then they try the games. And you can sort of follow a trail through, and at some point you could then use the database as well. But the book kind of stands on its own too.
Yeah, no, completely. I think you know, all of you watching, you're going to be well prepared for your child's interest in games after reading this book. I can assure you, I've read it myself. Like it's really, really, really jam packed with information, and I enjoy the fact that there's a lot of heart from it as well, since like this is obviously a book that you created yourself. And I love watching the video that you have on Twitter of you actually like talking about the fact that it was actually published. And
yeah, it was quite overwhelming. Actually. I hadn't expected that, but just because it was a 3-year project, and it only existed because it was this strange coalition. So it's a crowdfunded book, and I got hundreds of families to back it, but I still didn't have enough money. But a couple of industry backers joined, Xbox and Roblox. But then also schools and colleges supported it, and YMCA and Internet Matters. So it felt like a real sort of coalition, quite an unusual coalition of kind of parents and industry and charities all together. And so then having it as a physical object, I wasn't quite prepared for, like, in the box and being like, whoa, what's this? And you never know. I thought it would look good, but you never know until you got it in your hands. And I'm really pleased with it. So that's great.
Yeah, no, completely. Oh, thank you so much for thank you so much for creating this book, sharing your knowledge, creating this database as well. And yes, anybody who's watching, definitely you need to go check out both of these things right now. Go check them out. And with that as well, I think that we're going to open the floor up for questions. So we're going to bring Alex and Joanna back in as well with Andy. And please, if you have any questions, send them over and we'll start answering them. I actually have a few right now. So here we go. First one up. How do you introduce children to some different game fields, i.e., designer, sound, animation, etc.? Programming itself is fine, but with those fields, it's a bit tricky. Are there any games out there that help you make games or design experiences, or any that can fuel my child's learning and creativity? This might be one for Andy, but feel free, Alex and Joanna as well, to chime in. So Andy, do you want to start this one off?
Like. Yeah, so I don't know if you want to share the screen again, but I did bring it up earlier. There are lots of games that, where as part of the game you create something, and that could just be you're laying out a town, or you're doing something creative. But there's some specific games that are designed to let you and your child create games yourself. And we've got this list on the database that we did with the National Video Game Museum that's quite varied. You'll see some of these games are there because they have a level creator, so you can play the game and you can create your own level and share them. And other games like Roblox or like Mario Maker or like Game Builder Garage here are actually designed to sort of teach the basics of programming. But then also there are lots of games that as you play, you kind of create music. And so we've got other lists on the database that signpost some of those. And again, it can sort of wake up a child to a creativity that might kind of be dormant, particularly if they're not traditionally musically inclined, but in a game world, the sort of experiences you can have and the interactions are quite different, and so you can find a kind of a latent talent there, and so it's just sort of digging in and trying some of these games, and also speaking to other families, and sort of finding out what friends and family are doing as well. So I think that there's a few starting points there.
Oh, completely. And Joanna or Alex, do you have anything to add to that?
I would say, yeah, I mean, games are an amazing source of being able to introduce two different games. With things like animation as well, there's quite a lot of apps and different things that actually facilitate being able to animate your own characters or do some stop animation. So that sort of thing is worth having a little look at as well. And yeah, just basically doing, like, looking around different games company websites, things like that. Like our Creative Chronicles have a lot of different like introductions to the different disciplines, and even though it might be a little bit advanced to begin with for a child just getting into it, it would give sort of like the adult a little bit more around the field for that. So I think, yeah, there's definitely a lot of different places out there where you can introduce them. And don't forget, with design as well, board games are designing a game just because it's not virtual. So get them to design their own board game, even as something as simple as that on paper. It's still designing a level, it's still designing something, so it doesn't have to always sort of be on a virtual screen if you want to have something a little bit more hands-on and practical.
Oh, that's such a good recommendation as well, because yeah, I mean, like, that is, at the end of the day, pretty much like most games come from a board game background, like especially, JRPGs and that type of thing all come from pen and paper RPGs. Like, that is such a fundamental starting block of games, because yeah, screen time is always a bit of a barrier that parents sometimes get stuck in. Oh God, my child has had like 3 hours of game and they are just dead to the world now. Like, you see their faces go flush and you're just like, oh gosh, what did I do to you? But yeah.
Sorry, I just remembered something else as well. When we have a very short 5-minute video on sound as well, just sort of thinking of one of the other disciplines there. But basically, if they take a phone or something, they can go around and record all sorts of sounds around their house, then load them up onto the computer and just have a play around and see what sounds they make. It's really easy. You can just set them off on different tasks and different missions like that. Anything like that kind of thing, just to ignite their sort of creativity skills. That would be absolutely fine as well.
Yeah, completely. And then Alex, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, so there's plenty of opportunity out there already in terms of games that already allow you to kind of be creative. You mentioned specifically down design, sound, animation, and these kind of specific areas that aren't necessarily programming. So if you think about the Mario Maker games, for example, on Switch or even Wii U, they're really fantastic to kind of help you do things even in a sound or animation level. There's a game come out last year, I think it was called Dreams from PlayStation, which is
Yes.
exactly that, to create your own kind of thing. And the purpose there isn't programming as such. You'd make use of the tech that's already in the game, and you become creative. And there are plenty of kind of things, especially on YouTube out there, showing the art side, the creative side, the soundscape side of things. And you as a player, you as your family, or you as an individual, you can play those directly on your console, directly seeing how things are doing and learning from that and taking the ideas and remodeling into something that you do. I know from my niece, for example, she absolutely loves that. She is now 11, and she's been playing for Dreams for a couple of months now. I've got it for in the summer, and seeing kind of how she kind of got out of a shell almost to kind of do animation, to do kind of things, changing color, changing light, changing the atmosphere. It's just a wonderful thing to do. That's definitely something worth looking at, and seeing also just something that your children resonate with and wanting to do more with, already on a digital kind of scale.
Yeah, completely. I think that's so important. It's still like letting your child just explore, like letting your child or teen just explore things. I remember myself, I taught myself how to use a video editing software. Like I didn't know how to, I didn't have anybody to guide me with it, but like just having that space to just like explore something that's going to allow me to just increase my skills without me even really fully realizing that that was what I was doing, made me want to do it more and more and more because it was fun. Like it was just fun to do. But Dreams is a fantastic recommendation. And I know my daughters love Scratch Junior on the iPad. Is like that is such a fundamental app of teaching about programming and coding and that type of thing. And then another question that we had was, could we know what would be a study plan and what age that they could start to study? And I mean, from my perspective, I feel like there's not really a solid study plan to sort of go with. I mean, it obviously depends on the age of your child, but like I feel like just playing games is the most beneficial thing that you can do to help your child like study, get their feet into what it means to create games and expand their creativity and inspiration. How do you feel about that, Joanna?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, playing games, making games, anything like that is a really good start. It depends, kind of like study plan. As Alex said in his talk, there's like 14 different areas, sort of thing. So to kind of go very specific into one area is kind of difficult. But sort of if you're doing art or something like that, it might be that you just start drawing, you just start learning. You, like when you're taking your GCSE options, you keep up those skills like that. There's roles within the industry, sort of like technical artist, where you actually need to be really good at art and then really good at maths. And so actually just studying art, maths, and possibly computer science, something like that, just keeps all of those options open. There's other subjects as well that you could do. But the best thing that I know from talking to so many different people in the industry is that everybody's had their own journey and had their own path. There's no one set way of getting into games, but I think it is just keeping in tune with it, keeping in touch. As they get a little bit older, there's a lot of different game jams and things like that they can take part in. Even more so, there's school age ones that are becoming a lot more popular, where they can get involved and get into a team and learning how to work and connect with other people, and learn that sometimes you might have great ideas, but somebody else has great ideas, and learning how to sort of merge those together. I think that's a massive skill in itself, learning how to work together to make something and complete something. So there's a few different ways that you can go into that.
Yeah, game jams are an incredible way, because not only you have to create a game, but you also have the time pressures as well, because like if your game is like, you know, you're thinking, oh gosh, I'm gonna make like this open world RPG within like a couple days, that's just not realistic. It's not necessarily something that is a realistic thing. That's just too intense. So like it teaches you so much about what you know as a developer, and then also what the limits are as far as a developer. Like, I think that's incredible.
And also it makes you know sort of what bit that you're interested in, because you might go into it thinking, oh, I'm a game designer, but then actually you enjoyed organizing the whole group. So therefore actually maybe production is something that you might want to look at instead. Or you might actually realize using a bit of Photoshop or something like that, that actually my art skills are pretty good for this sort of thing. So there's a reason why you might want to do that, to be sort of like looking at all of the different opportunities as well within that.
Any experience is good experience, essentially.
I think, and something I think you can do as a parent, I think celebrating even small successes in these areas is a really powerful thing. I think it's easy. Yeah. It's easy for us to be cautious or nervous about celebrating something that encourages more screen time, because of this, I think, unfortunate focus on this phrase of screen time.
The boogeyman.
Yeah, but you know, but obviously we use screens for all sorts of things, so it's a bit too, you know, we need to think of what's happening on the screen. But that's that aside, I think really starting to treat gameplay and, you know, creative play around games like we do if you're learning an instrument, or like we do if our child's learning a foreign language, and really taking those opportunities to celebrate that. It not only gives them encouragement to do it, but it also really situates games as something like, oh, this is part of the whole family again, and it's a really helpful way to be connected, and to give that child confidence that this is something that isn't kind of some weird obscure thing they're doing in a corner, but actually this is great and it's going to be celebrated, because that is what, you know, that's the world they're going to be coming into. If they do something in a video game, it's going to be massively celebrated. And so I think we can give them a head start on that as parents, and the families that have done that have seen quite a real opportunity, I think.
Oh, completely. I love seeing my daughter, like my daughter's, my eldest is only 6, but like celebrating what she's done in something like Scratch. She made a chicken move and say, I love you. Like, I was just like, oh my goodness, good job, Adley. Like, I'm so proud of you. It's, and having that knowledge as a parent of what they're doing, and having that like sort of involvement in that is just so important to help them and help encourage them to keep making chickens that move and say I love you, because it's good. And then how about you, Alex? Do you have anything to add?
At the moment, I think Joanne has been very, very good already, and Andy as well, with kind of recommendation on this one. So on this one, I can't really add any more.
Sure. And then I mean, another question that we had, can I get into game design even if I'm not good at art? Do you want to take that one, Alex? Start that one off.
Sure. Yes. So game design as a course is a fantastic opportunity to do a number of things, and a standard game design course does give you a number of ways of kind of getting into the industry: animation, concept art, game design as a whole, game development, graphics design, multimedia, software engineering, VFX, anything like that. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be good at art. It doesn't mean you have to be able to kind of do these kind of things, or even the programming. There are various kind of areas within game design and that field of study that you can apply to varying number of roles. Keep in mind that in many cases, a university degree or college degree gives you a certain foundation. You will always need, at the end of the day, some kind of practical learning, either during studies, during your summer holidays, or as an intern or anything like that, or in your first year of work, obviously. That then translates into real applications and real kind of knowledge and experience and skill. Worry about that one more. So focus on the game design course. Make sure you do the best from it. Learn from it, even if you're not good at design, or I suck at programming, I'm honest with you. But you can do it that kind of way and learn from that, and kind of really kind of hone down your skills and strength into the area you want to go in.
I think that's amazing. And moving along, because I know we have a lot of questions and we want to get through. We want to get through as many as we can. There was another one here. Is there any value in creating a design portfolio? My kids have a ton of ideas for games, so can you recommend a way that he could present them? Do you want to take that, Joanna?
There is absolutely value in creating a design portfolio. It's never too long to start, because you can just have reiterations and reiterations of things. I mean, it depends how they want to actually present their work at this stage. Probably they want to just sort of put it all into kind of like a even like a PowerPoint or something like that, or a Word. It doesn't have to be something big. There's different platforms that you can use as well to create a design portfolio. Possibly Alex might be more familiar with the actual ones for a design portfolio themselves. I mean, programming and things, it's GitHub for arts, like on Art, there's ArtStation and things, but an actual easy website to do that on. But the absolutely value, make sure that if they are doing it, that they're writing down iterations. So when they're writing it, they're saying, oh, I had this thought and this is what I did, and then I made this complete mistake, and so to help that mistake I then did this. And even sort of when they're applying for jobs and we're looking at like full portfolios, we're looking for that written annotations down the side of actually what happened, what was your thought process at this point, why did you change this? All of those kind of questions just gets them sort of thinking wider than just, here's the game that I designed. It sort of gives you a lot more to go with it. So yeah, Alex, do you have any with that? Because I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I think we at Griff Assembly absolutely love ArtStation. We absolutely love it for a number of things, not only for kind of environmental stuff or anything like that, but also kind of, as Joanne said, any kind of design concepting stuff as well, because it allows you to be kind of free in what you want to do, and also, as Joanne said, explain what your thinking was and how you evolved that thinking as well. Is quite important for us. There are other ones as well out there in the market, obviously, not only these ones. Dribble, Behance, Portfolio or Portfolio Box, even, for example, are useful. We've also had portfolios done on Google Drive. You know, there's a number of ways of doing this in a quite nice and clean kind of way. And one important thing to mention, though, is when you present your portfolio to a studio or somebody you want to kind of work for or work with, practice. So talk to your parents, talk to a friend, talk to somebody else, to kind of get you into the rhythm of kind of being able to present your portfolio in a clean kind of way. That also counts towards it, because even though, again, coming back to the comment earlier about my design isn't very good, or my art isn't very good, or my programming isn't very good, trying to explain what you did, what you were thinking, and how you change it, and what you would do if you could, is half the battle almost also as well. So to explain your story, tell us your story, your narrative as to what you're doing and why you want to get into the industry. That's really important for us as well, just as much as your portfolio itself as well.
And on that as well is we had a question about, is there a particular development language that that my child should be exposed to in order to get them sort of like on the right path? Because I think that's the thing, like there's so many different languages that you just sort of think like, oh my god, do they have to know all of them? What do I do?
So the key ones that we normally recommend in the studios I worked for, also in software development, so it doesn't matter whether it's game development or software development, the ones that are kind of still very much prevalent right now are these three. It's Java. That's running pretty much everything in the world, be that mobile phones, TVs, applications, anything like that, and is used across everything. I mean, even FIFA 11 and FIFA, what's the latest one out? 2011? I'm not sure, 2021. That latest one effectively also uses Java already as well, you know, or still uses it for its source and everything like that. C# is the next one. It's very big up and coming. It's used on a number of kind of games, especially for Xbox and Sony PlayStation. It's used heavily on games with Unreal or Unity, quite useful language. And then finally C++, its smaller brother or older brother, effectively, if you will. That's also being used across the board. Any of these ones take a while to master, but not difficult to learn. And in many cases, Udemy, you guys might know Udemy already, they provide every month a couple of free courses to download and watch and everything like that. And in many cases, these are already about these three languages, Java, C# and C++, to really kind of get you going and kind of practice on your own time if you want to. And that's really kind of what helps as well.
And then one more question sort of on the development side again, was about Unity. Just really quick, like whether or not you feel it's still sort of relevant to the games that we make today, or is it purely for DIY? I mean, I know a lot of games that are made in Unity lately.
It's
Unity is still heavily used. It's still heavily used. It's one of the most known engines in the market, and it's definitely not for DIY.
Yeah.
Many games use it still. Many games that also cross-platform use it on mobile, on console, everything like that. If you know Unity, you're doing a really good job already.
Yeah. And like the access to the development, like the tutorials through Unity are just so good. They're so good at getting you prepped up and really helping you along. And actually, people use them on game jams as well, and it's free. It's free. Like, that's amazing. So yeah. Unity is good. We all like Unity. So I think that's like pretty much all we have time for. So I think, like, as a closing, like, sort of thing, is there any advice, last bits of advice that you have for somebody who has a kid who's just so passionate about games and wants to join the industry? Any last bits of advice? I'll start with you, Andy.
I think just finding a way for them to do it, whether that's on paper and pen, whether that's using Dreams, or but starting small and having a scrapbook of your ideas is absolutely fine. I think start with where you are, and sort of lay track to what's ahead of you. But that enthusiasm from a parent is really powerful.
And then Joanna, you want to take yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would following on from that. Yeah, just practicing, but also following what you enjoy, because if you follow what you enjoy and stick to what you enjoy, then you're going to end up in a job that you enjoy. So as a parent, that's probably all you want for your kids, is to actually make sure that they're going through something that they want to enjoy. So if they want to follow the lead of staying in art, then let them do that. If they want to go into computer science, then let them do that, and just keeping whatever they would like to do in their passion, because then it will follow through into a role as they get older.
And then Alex.
I think for me, kind of just make sure you empower them. Let them be creative in whatever material they choose, whether it's digital, whether it's on paper, whether it's with blocks. It doesn't matter. Just let them enjoy themselves and let them be creative in whatever they do. Do support them, do encourage them, and do celebrate victories with them. And that's very important. Let them not be deterred. Whatever you can, support them what you can.
I think that's great advice from all of you. I mean, thank you so much for all the advice you've given us tonight. It's been absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for your time.
It's been great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been really, really lovely talking to everybody.
Yeah, no, it's been absolutely incredible. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. And thank you so much for your questions as well. I know it always seems like such a big thing when you think about careers and kids and teens. And so I really hope that you got some insight tonight, like learn from the advice that was shared tonight. It's absolutely incredible. Any other information, of course, you can join, you can read Taming Gaming. Definitely go pick it up. Check out the Family Video Games database as well. Check out intogames.org as well, because there's a ton of resources on there. They have like a job database where you can look and you can see, oh, this job needs these kinds of skills, and it's really, really beneficial. So highly recommend that you go and do that as next steps, and definitely follow Into Games for more stuff, that for more information and more news on any opportunities that we have coming up. And if you have any more questions, though, feel free to email us at hello@intogames.org. Somebody will be more than happy to answer any other questions that you may have. So as a lasting thing, thank you so much again to Andy, Joanna, and Alex for giving up your time in order to chat with us and sharing your wisdom. It's been absolutely amazing. And I hope that you all have a really amazing holiday. This live stream, again, was brought to you by Into Games and Creative Assembly. And we hope that this event has helped you and given you some ideas and inspiration for how to best support your children into a career. I'm losing my words, a career in the games industry. For more information, again, head on over to intogames.org. And again, follow us on Twitter at IntoGamesHQ for all game career related news, advice, and opportunities. You can also follow Creative Assembly at CA Games and find out more about future events and resources. And then as a closing, the family video games database as well. They can be found at taminggaming.com and askaboutgames.com as well. So definitely check those out as well. I'm giving you whole lots to go and check out right now. But definitely go do that. This has been an amazing time. Thank you so much again, and have a really good rest of your night. Bye, everyone.